Hi, welcome to our Wednesday devotional. Thank you for watching this. I trust that it'll be a blessing today. I have a question for you, and I won't see your answer, but maybe you can tell me. Do you like to camp out? I didn't camp out much as a child, and so when my children were young, I thought as a dad I should do a few things. I should take them fishing. I should camp out a little bit with them, things that dads are supposed to do. And even though I hadn't done so as a child, I did it a little bit while they were growing up. Camping is not necessarily my favorite thing. If I've got a good home with a good bed that's comfortable, with heating or air conditioning, I think I'll normally prefer that over a tent. In fact, my wife and I were watching TV not long ago, and we saw a show called Extreme RVs. And it was recreational vehicles that are far nicer than any house you or I will ever live in. Way, way nicer. They were really something. But I thought about the fact that they're only temporary. My wife and I visited recently a lady who had visited our church, and she had just moved to the area and was in a brand new house. Well, she and my wife got to talking about the new house and all the new things and looking at everything. It was so neat. And then they got to talking about John chapter 14, where Jesus talks about preparing us mansions in heaven. And we can only speculate, we can only imagine what those will be like. But I want to remind you that we today are just living in temporary houses. I'm not just talking about your house in Milford or in Harrington or Felton. I'm talking about the bodies we live in. They're just temporary. In fact, in 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 1, we read this: "For we know that if our earthly house of this tabernacle," that's the body we live in, "was dissolved, we have a building of God, and house not made with hands, eternal in the heaven." Our body is just a dwelling place. This is a place we live for 50 or 100 years. Maybe not 100, but a few do. We just live in this temporary body. And I was reminded of two or three thoughts. The first thought is this: everything we have on earth is temporary. You understand that everything is temporary? Our bodies are temporary. Our houses are temporary. Our cars are temporary. Our health is temporary. Sickness is temporary. Pain is temporary. Problems are temporary. Loneliness is temporary. It's all temporary. This is just a little foretaste of what will come later on. Because everything here is temporary, let's be careful not to be so obsessed with things that are happening here, not to be so obsessed with things we can get here. Let's not hang on to things tightly. Let's hang on loosely and be ready to let things go because they're temporary. In doing that, it'll help us to focus on eternal things. Eternal things. He says, "For we know that our earthly house of this tabernacle," that's a temporary place. I was thinking recently of when we first moved to Milford back in 1999, and we had the privilege of selling a house in Northern Virginia. We were going to build a house here. As it turns out, it was one of only two building permits issued that year for houses in Milford. Milford wasn't growing very fast. But while we were building the house, my wife and I stayed in the apartment here at the church. Now, right now we have a very nice apartment. It's a two-room apartment. It has a restroom in the apartment. It has two full-sized beds and a couch that opens up into a bed and a little refrigerator and microwave. It's a very nice apartment. But when we first came here, the apartment wasn't exactly like that. In fact, the apartment was such that it did not have bathrooms in it. To go to the bathrooms, we had to go across the hallway in the education building and down the hallway a little bit and go to the restroom. So my wife told me, if I get up in the middle of the night, she said, "you're going with me across the hall." But it was a temporary place, and because we knew we had a house being built, we'd go over almost every day and look at it and watch it going up. It was okay to live in those temporary quarters. We were thankful for the temporary quarters, but we knew they were just temporary. And I think today, if we will look at our bodies and our lives in the same way. We realize that this is only temporary. The problems we face are only temporary. Even the good times we face are only temporary. I think we'll be far happier when we focus on eternal things and realize this world is not my home. I'm just a passing through. Because we have a building of God, a house not made with hands, eternal in the heavens. I'm eager to get there. Aren't you? Have a great day.